for today, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty packed agenda. So a couple things we're going to go through. We want to review the newsletter / town hall content that folks have put in. There are a few caveats to that. We do not have all updates from all people. I spoke with Ryan Ware for the tooling group yesterday. He was going to try to get something in there. I'm not sure if he did. We'll see. But I guess his working group meets quite literally right after this meeting. And he wanted to review the content with his working group first, which is understandable.
Ryan, can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so he just sent out an email saying he has hurt his back and he has canceled the meeting, and I suspect he is not going to be reviewing anything in the next week or so.
Yeah, okay. Yep. That's unfortunate. I hope he's okay.
Me too. I mean, he said we're planning to meet back in 2 weeks. So it sounds like it's a temporary, but I'm sure it's not pleasant.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound fun at all. Okay, well, we'll figure that out. We'll see if maybe there's someone else that can help fill in the meantime. Same with Krob. I reached out to him as well. I haven't heard back. I know he's kind of in the middle of a transition, so we'll review what we can, and then but it looks like some of this stuff might get reviewed offline after this meeting today. And then after that, we want to talk about some budget things. The planning committee that Kay's been working with has some updates there. And then Jennifer will be talking about the governing board offsite that they had and some outreach conferences information. And then we have some of this leftover thing around the tax view on participant changes in employment. So I think we've all kind of superficially agreed. So we'll just kind of make that a little bit more official. And after all that, if we still have time, we will talk about the roadmap and wish list that we started some months ago, or at least introduce it so we can talk about it again at the next meeting. So with that, Kay, I don't know if you want to drive this side of things, or
I can, sure.
Up to you.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, excellent. I had a moment where I wondered if I was on mute. So let me share my screen.
Perfect. Stop sharing.
Oh, actually, you were sharing it. That's okay. We can use yours, Ryan.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, now we're seeing her, so either way.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, so if I go into present.
Yes.
And then, yikes. Go to the top and then go to present. Okay, so we'll run our town hall like we have been. I'm going to skip through some of these. One interesting thing on the agenda is we're going to have Mike Scavetta talk with us about. Actually, we're thinking we'll have a regular section section of our town halls where we talk about in the news. And last month we talked about solar winds, and not last month, last quarter, we talked about solar winds, and this time we'll talk about dependency confusion and code cov. Then we'll, do updates on what's happening at the governing board, the TAC, and we'll talk about each of the working groups.
Okay, Mike Scavetta is confirmed for the dependency confusion thing.
He said that he would be glad to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will edit and you keep going.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll talk about accomplishments, how people can get involved. Then TAC. Ryan's going to update the TAC items, so I won't go through those here.
So actually, real quick on that, I looked at this yesterday and was thinking about what we were going to put in there, and I wanted to bring it up to this group because most of what we've done in the past quarter has been reviewing the working groups, and then a couple little odds and ends that aren't really like big announcements. So I didn't know how we wanted to work that flow. It seems like switching over to me to just say these two bullet points, unless there's something else I'm just completely spacing on. But I went back through all the notes. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what we did. So I don't know if we want to tweak the flow a little bit to maybe just add this like as a little blip in the intro, by the way, and the TAC has been doing this, and then just transition right into the working group stuff, or
yeah, let's talk about that offline, Ryan. I think we can do that. We could also maybe move some of the because I was talking about accomplishments in the early section, and we could maybe move that down so you
exactly, yeah,
give the overview of all the working groups. So one way or another, we can make that work out.
cool. That sounds good.
Okay.
Is there a upcoming activities thing that they could fill that out with more stuff?
So that was kind of the roadmap thing that we're going to start back, which we're kind of touching on today. But I don't know how detailed we wanted to go into that. Certainly we could, if we make it to that part of the discussion today, we could see about maybe where we want to head and add some of that in there. I don't know if it's going to add enough to like really give us a full, 5 minutes worth of discussion, but we could certainly look into it.
Okay.
Or folks have other ideas that they think should go on there. Like, Dan, I actually was thinking about what you're potentially going to present, next time for the DCI stuff. But I don't know if we'll get there in order to have something, productive to put in here.
Right. Yeah. See how far we get.
Yeah, exactly. But certainly an option. Yeah, I'm totally open to that.
Dan, did you have other ideas for?
No, I was just thinking if this was accomplishments,
upcoming?
If there was something else to add on there, like, well, what are we planning to do? That's a good thing to communicate.
Right.
So the DCI stuff, which we haven't talked about yet, could be something, but it might be premature to put that on now. We also, what else did we? I think in the last quarter we codified the life cycle and the working group abilities. Those were like 2 issues that we closed.
Yeah, we put that in the previous at the previous town hall. That was yeah. That's why when I looked back at what we'd really done since, it's pretty much been reviewing the working groups and all of that, and then there's been a few little ad hoc discussions around some issues, but there weren't really like announcements or big things.
I'm just making a couple of notes here, Ryan, and then you and I can talk offline as well. So
yeah, we can figure out the flow afterwards. That's fine.
I don't know what DCI is. Sorry.
It's a diversity and inclusion, but the C is for civility.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the next TAC meeting, Dan's going to give us a presentation on some thoughts that he has or proposal. So really looking forward.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay. We could add somewhere in either in this section or the overview section, another thing that we have just finished is deciding on a code of conduct.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
This is for the community overall.
Yeah, because this kind of dovetails with what I was thinking actually. Because the only other thing that I thought that might be interesting to put here is the budget stuff, and that's kind of TAC and kind of governing board. So I almost wondered if what we should do is just have a governing board and TAC update. It's like, here's the update from the overhead of the group, and then go
right.
into the working group.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that.
But yeah, we can figure that out after.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. We have get involved up earlier, so we might want to not have it again here.
Yeah, this was left over from the previous template, but I think, we've decided that consolidating this would be.
Yeah, we got feedback from the previous meeting that we had a lot of get involved slides, and it'd be better to consolidate and have fewer of those and talk more about the meat of what groups are doing. Okay, so identifying security threats, Michael Scavetta has updated his. we thought about taking again, following this feedback that there's repetitive stuff. We thought about, should we include the missions across all the working groups? And then we decided since we will have new people at these town hall meetings, it's useful to just give a quick summary of the mission, not take too much time, but do a quick summary. And then Mike mentioned his accomplishments, the accomplishments for the working group. The big thing they've done is the metric dashboard, which I think maybe you guys heard about in the TAC last week. So they've got that going, and he's going to, give some overview. Maybe he'll even give us a demo, but he's got some slides that show it. And the two things are the metrics dashboard and then the security reviews project. So he'll talk about both of those. And then he has a quick get involved for his project. What we thought we'd have the working groups do is focus on anything that's unique in their, so in their get involved slides, focus on anything that's unique to their project, since we're covering the overall how to get involved earlier in the deck. So that's identifying security threats. In security tooling, we need updates from Ryan or someone from that community. So Ryan Haining, you'll help me find someone to update that slide. Or you'll
Yeah,
be,
I was
okay,
thinking I'll
these
put a
slides.
post on their Slack channel and see who the next best person might be to help fill that out.
Okay, perfect. Best practices, you mentioned already, we haven't heard back from Crobe yet. So these aren't updated.
Right, but I see Javi is on the call.
Yes, yes,
Can
hi.
I-
Yes, I know that so Crobe is transitioning right now into a new role, and myself, I'm kind of the same position, transitioning inside GitHub into a new organization, so it's been a bit crazy. But I will take care of reaching out to Crobe and updating this slide as up.
Great, thank you, Javier.
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right, and then vulnerability disclosures.
Yeah, same issue here.
Okay, so do you want to reach out to the Slack channel again for that
Yep.
one?
And yeah, I sent Crow a message on Slack, and I haven't heard, but he's been offline, and because I'm not sure what his new email is. The previous one that we have is all Red Hat. So
All right.
yeah, so I'll post to the group and see if either someone has contact for him or if someone else could sort of take the lead on this for now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, and then digital identity attestation. I think the way that we were going with those is Dan was covering one and Kim covering the other.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Dan still on, or did he have to drop for childcare? It looks like he had to drop. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So we'll have to follow up with him.
Okay. And
Same with
Kim,
Kim.
we don't have Kim on either. Okay. Okay. Well, we've got one of 6 of our working groups. That's something, but we do have a ways to go. We have a little bit of time, but not much. So just to let the group know, we are doing, in addition to the town hall meeting, which will be on May 3rd, we have a quarterly newsletter that we send out. And we send that on the announcements list and we tweet about it. And there is some lead time that we need to give. The quarterly newsletter is put together by the Linux Foundation's PR agency, and we need to let them know they like to have a month of lead time. We're asking if they can do something in 2 weeks. So they would really like to have content by Wednesday, or what we've said is we'd have content by Wednesday. So we do need to get something, but we have a little time, which is a day, and then we need content for our PR agency.
So is that going to be an issue going forward? Because we're never really going to be a month out by the time this content is created, right? For future.
Yeah, we've been saying we'd be 2 weeks out. Good question. Carly, do you have thoughts here?
I mean, I talked to Jennifer yesterday and she was okay with the 2-week notice that I gave her. Well, if we do need to have content by tomorrow, just so they have enough time to put everything together. But I think moving forward, 2 weeks is probably okay. But I would suggest like being firm on that 2 weeks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do this for the content. So if we don't get, ideally we'd have more from other working groups. If we don't get more, then we will go ahead with, we've got some meaty content from the identifying security threats. So we might just have a shorter newsletter and focus on those two, on the dashboard and the audits projects. So
Kate, this is David Wheeler. I may
Yeah.
regret this,
Mhm.
but I have been to some of these other meetings, and so I could try to fill in some of the others. I'd rather not do them all, and I want to make sure that the working group lead, I'm the backup for the working group leads. I'm not replacing a working group lead. Also, I do think that really the big story for this past 3-month period is the metrics group. Most of the
Mhm.
others are, small steps in progress, not major new announcements. So it would make sense to emphasize the security threats progress.
Okay. Okay, well, good. So yeah, if you can help out to add content, if you think of anything, based on your attending the other meetings, anything noteworthy, please go ahead and put it in before tomorrow.
Okay.
And then Carly, if you can emphasize when we're talking with Jennifer, that we're going to focus on the activities in the identifying security threats group primarily, and then we can add some other things.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, unless there's anything else, that's all I have for town hall and newsletter.
Hey, Kate, did we talk about this polling in the middle of the town hall yesterday?
What we talked about is having one poll at the end, which is, right as we go into Q&A, and then do another wrap up about get involved. So we will send out a survey to people afterward, but we'll take time in the this is where we'll have the poll so that people can essentially fill out the survey questions, but just do it interactively at the time of the meeting rather than afterwards.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah,
Okay.
Zoom has an option to do that, so I could help Carly if you want.
Yeah, I think Carly's planning on that. She didn't respond, but she might be fiddling with her unmute. Thank you, Ro. Anything else? Okay, I will stop sharing that.
So, thank you, Kay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so when we get those updates, I'll send out a message to the group so that if people want to review offline, they can. And then, so the next thing in our agenda is back to you, Kay. It's the
Okay.
budget planning update, and then you get a break.
Okay, great. Yeah, we just had our first budget committee meeting last Thursday, and we'll be meeting bi-weekly going forward. The topic in our last meeting was, first we elected a chair for the budget committee, and Jeff Altman, who is one of our governing board representatives, will be our chair. The second thing we did is we talked about member dues, and I can give a quick update on that. So we will be asking members to pay dues beginning in 2022. In 2021, we waived those because of COVID. We didn't want people to be concerned about joining because their budgets were tight. Our initial plan for the member dues is that it will be on a sliding scale based on the size of the organization, and the dollar amounts won't be huge. So for organization sized 1 to 99, we were talking about $5,000. 100 to 599 would be so the increments were $5,000 each. So it'd go 5,000 to 10,000, 15, and 20, and then the breakpoints would be at 100. I think 100, 500, 1,000, and 5,000. And that's still, we're still finalizing that, and it'll have to go to the governing board for approval. But that's what we were thinking. And then in addition to that, we want to make it possible for organizations to contribute higher dollar amounts and be part of a, I don't know, what we'll call it, the Security Stars or something, kind of group, some fun name, that if people can contribute more and are willing to contribute more, we'll have some dollar amounts. Maybe they're 50,000, 100, 250, 500, and then they can be at some other level, silver, gold, platinum, etc. And then this money that's the above and beyond money would go towards dedicated funding of security projects. So the projects that we've been talking about in the Securing Critical Projects group. So, and that's early thinking. So we'll have to finalize that, and we're working to do that. We think we'll have the budget finalized. Ideally, it would happen in our next governing board meeting, which is May 5th, I think, because we want to let members know what the member dues will be ahead of time so that they can plan for it and get it into their own organization budgets. So we'll have that finalized by this coming May, or by the latest in our June meeting. And then we're aiming having the dedicated funding process finalized by I think we said our July meeting. So that's a couple more weeks out until we work through all the details of that. Okay, and then the last thing I'll mention is that we do have funds for working groups if there is a need for funds. For example, if working groups need funds for hosting CI/CD infrastructure, or just for hosting services, web services, so cloud service provider, or other needs. We have currently just a little under $250,000 in our budget, and we want to make sure that we are funding the needs of our community. So Ryan had sent out earlier a request from groups to identify what their needs are, and if anyone has needs, knows of needs, you can send those to the budget committee. It's OpenSSF-GB-budget at list.openssf.org. And we'll get those into our budget, and we'll try to get money back out to working groups as quickly as we can.
Okay, have you received any requests so far from the working groups?
I have not.
Because I know there's at least 2 that need it. So I want to make sure.
That's what I'd heard, is that we had groups that need it. So we're waiting. We're sitting.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Javier. Sure.
Yes, for the best practices working group, we have the SKF platform that needs to be put on a public server. So definitely this one, I know that we already made this budget exercise a few months ago, but I couldn't put my hand on the spreadsheet, so I have to go back to that and send it to you.
Yeah, if you can find that and forward that, that'd be great. And if you forget the name of the budget alias, you can send it to me and I'll forward it along.
Oh, I have it. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Javier.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think Mike Scavetta is probably the other person that needs it for hosting the metrics dashboard as well. So I can just follow up with him and see if either he needs help getting it together or if he's got something.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, since we hadn't collected dues, who had generously provided that 250K?
So we did get a donation from Microsoft at the end of the fiscal year last year.
That's
It
great.
was a budget windfall thing. There was extra in the Microsoft budget. There we had funds budgeted for the entire year for open source projects in general, and we were in a use it or lose it situation, and I stepped up and said, "Hey, I know a great open source project that can make use of some of that money." So
That's
how
really
we,
cool.
yeah, that's how we came upon that. All right, if no other questions, back to Ryan.
All right, thank you, Kay. So next up on the agenda, we have Jennifer, who's going to talk about the governing board offsite, and then following that with the outreach and conferences. So Jennifer.
Great, thank you, Ryan. My update's super quick. The offsite, we've done 3 sessions with members of the governing board. We will be having for the beginning of the next governing board meeting, kind of laid out what the different scope of decision making is for different parts of OpenSSF. So part of this is governing board and its subcommittees, part of this is TAC, and part of this is the working groups or the Linux Foundation more broadly. So really the point in that exercise was figuring out exactly where and how decisions are made so that we can make them much faster. And the output of that is forthcoming. So when we have that document, I'll bring it to the TAC. It'll either be our next meeting or the one after that. I'm not sure. I will look at a calendar and let you all know. As for outreach and conferences, we are organizing this kind of informally right now. Reach out to me at some point soon. I'll have a more scalable approach. There is a repo, but it's equivalent to sending me an email if that's easier for y'all. We are doing some outreach. So of course, we want to spread the good word of securing the open source ecosystem. Krob, myself, Kay, and Rao did a presentation at the FOSS Backstage Conference back in February. We've submitted a panel as well to Black Hat USA. We don't know if it'll get in, but we hope so, because we would like to reach a broader security community and get them interested and involved in OpenSSF. So there's a core group of us that are interested in doing this, but always more folks are welcome. So if anyone would like to help either give kind of our canonical presentation and panel in different venues, or would like to collaborate or find collaborators to do research or give presentations related to the type of work we're doing in OpenSSF, basically reach out to me. I will help coordinate these efforts so that we can reach more people and speak more widely in different venues. And this can be both about kind of general topics in securing open source. It can be about OpenSSF in particular, or it can go into very specific topics. So anyone that's interested in getting involved in that in any way can just reach out to me. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So that means you are a one-person outreach committee?
So part of the thing that I mentioned about the governing board, where we've been figuring out the subcommittees and the decision making, is laying out all of this stuff. In this interim period until we finalized it all, I am a one-person outreach committee. I think in the very near term, we'll have something that scales better and makes more sense and is more formal. But for right now, I am the stopgap. Yes.
Well, that's kind of you to expand your volunteering there.
Thanks.
She's amazing at this. I'll have to say, after having been in the panel with Jennifer and Rao and Krob, but Jennifer organized this very well.
Oh,
Yeah, that's cool. I'd kind of dialed in on that because I was comparing our structure versus some other open source groups, and I'd seen outreach committees in some of them, so that it just stood out to me recently as something that we were lacking potentially.
Yeah, and as you raised that, it made me think of something that maybe I hadn't considered in the scope, or that we haven't done yet, but have been kind of like implied in the scope. So the outreach that we do is typically reaching, our peers in security or in the open source community. But we may actually wish to reach more broadly than that. We may wish to reach students or specific groups of underrepresented people and so on. And that is not something that we have a strategy or active CFP submissions for right now, but I think that would fall under the same umbrella. So if anyone's interested in that kind of outreach as well, around sort of first time open source contributors and things like that, that could certainly be in scope as well.
Cool.
Jennifer, well, I was exactly about to say that. We realized in the GitHub Security Lab recently that we were kind of continuously talking to the same people, security researchers, and it was always security researchers talking to security researchers, and we really had some barriers, that we didn't manage to reach out to the broader audience. And this is an effort that we decided to make this quarter and next quarter, try to talk at open source conferences, developer conferences, and students indeed, because of course, if you can manage to reach out to students first, then it's a win. So yes, I totally agree with that. So I have no concrete ideas at the moment, just saying that this is something that we on the Security Lab we want to focus on for this quarter. So I think that's a great idea that you just mentioned that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Maybe we should chat more, Xavier, and
Yes.
anyone else who's interested. Maybe send me an email. I always default to email because it turns into my to-do list, but send me an email if you're interested in working on
I
this.
am,
Maybe
yes.
what I'll do is I'll bring together a small group of folks that are interested, because as well, we should think about reaching other geographies.
Oh yeah.
Maybe some other languages, if some of us can bring that to the table. Any way that we can kind of globalize and diversify and reach our non-traditional audience. I especially think about David's fantastic course about secure development. I mean, even that is a great message for especially beginner people as to how to begin to get involved.
Indeed. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
I'll add one other quick thing. We do have another outreach activity going on Thursday this week. Michael Scavetta kindly connected us with the Safe Code organization, and they are one of the members of OpenSSF. And the idea is that we want to share more information with the Safe Code members about OpenSSF and think about, help think about areas where the two of us can collaborate more, or Safe Code members can get involved in OpenSSF. So Ryan and I will be giving a presentation on Thursday to the Safe Code folks. That's all, just an FYI.
That'll be great. And sorry, I forgot to mention that one. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah, we got some pretty cool stuff coming up. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Kay. Definitely driving that stuff is pretty cool. So much appreciated. Any questions on that stuff before we move on to the next topic? Cool. All right. So the next thing, like I said, it's a little bit of a formality. We've had a couple of cases lately where members of the TAC have changed job positions and move companies and things of that nature. So we just wanted to confirm that in both those cases, we decided that, we're cool with that as long as, there's still OpenSSF members. We're not tied to company representation per se currently. So I think we just want to formalize that. If there's any objections, now is the time to discuss. But otherwise, I think we'll make it an official thing that we're not really concerned if somebody switches companies, as long as the interest, is still there.
We don't have any governance rules about this. Like I know on the governing board, we can't have more than 2 people from one parent organization. We have nothing like that in the TAC, right?
That's right.
No, we do have the same. Don't we have the no to company representation? But other than that,
Oh, well, we might actually.
I think it applies to TAC as well.
Okay. I'll pull that up and have a quick peek.
Yeah,
But there's
David,
nothing like that at the working group leadership level,
no, we never went that granular.
right?
I think it applies to the TAC, but not the working groups. But I mean, that's an offline check. I think we can easily
Yeah.
answer one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I think in the case that you're talking about, Ryan, we don't have the more than 2 number anyway, so we don't need to resolve that right now.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. So as long as everybody's on board with letting
We
people
do.
go on through job transitions.
Sorry, I did just check, and we do have the no more than 2 any. Let's see, OpenSSF members that are part of a group of related companies. So that would be like Microsoft and GitHub or IBM and Red Hat may have no more than 2 voting representatives on the TAC.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are no restrictions on, so the roles don't go with the company, they go with the individual. So if an individual moves companies, then they can continue in their roles if they desire.
So, and thankfully, I don't think that there's any problems with the changes based on that rule.
That's right.
Yep. All right. So no objections. Done. So the last thing on this agenda today is talking about this roadmap and the wish list. So for those that don't remember, we started this a few months back where we started, David, I should say, started collecting all of these random ideas that we've had in OpenSSF over the past year or so. And the idea was to start coalescing this into something that we could turn into a roadmap and identify new opportunities and things that might align with existing working groups or needs for new working groups and things of that nature. So David, do you want to present what that document that you've had and kind of walk through it and we can start working on a plan? Or
Whoa, okay, yeah, sure, just a second.
yeah, you're probably the most familiar with it. I can pull it up, but I just thought you might be able to speak to it more than anyone else.
Certainly. Give me just a second. I have to open the doc first in order to present it. Okay, yeah. So basically, but what Ryan said is absolutely right. The basically, I mean, we had a number of different groups. Mike Scavetta had done some work for OSSC. Mike Curfey had written some things. There were various documents that had various ideas. Jossie had a whole bunch of little white paper one-pagers. And so the idea was, well, we don't want to lose all these good ideas, but we can't possibly do them all. So the theory behind this, and now I got to figure out, let's see, can I do 2 things at once? Okay, so let's see here. I'm hoping you can see my screen, maybe. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, goody. All right. So this is the OpenSSF Technical Initiative Wish List. It's just a Google Doc. Everybody here should absolutely have access to it. If for some reason you don't, that's a problem, and let me know and we'll get it fixed. But it truly is just a merge of the ideas and and we actually discussed this within the TAC back on 2020, 11, 17. Really, some folks may not have been at that meeting. But basically it's a combo, and the goal next was at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future from now, we would walk through that and pull out, well, here's many things we could do. What are the things that we choose to do? And so if you look at this document, it first says this goal, which is just what I've verbally described. I did, because it's very, very long, I tried to pull out the bullets that I thought were, for various reasons, often repeated. So if you can only, too long, didn't read, here's your list. Okay. Reproducible builds, 2-factor authentication, default on security analysis, some specific security guidance playbooks, key management, software bill materials, malware analysis, more verification about findings. That's not to say that this group can't choose anything else. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, if you don't have time to read the whole thing, there are some ideas that keep popping up. Right after that, if you look at the wish list doc, it says where in the world all this stuff came from. You know, it's a long list. And then there was all the various ideas with an attempt to group them into some reasonable categories. And you know, basically there's bullets of what's the idea, I guess, about which working group might do it, and some quotes that give you an idea. And if you want it with citations, so if you want to see more about what those sources said, you could find it. I'm not going to walk through all, because the rest of the document basically looks like that. It's just all these ideas, and there's some great ideas in here that we don't want to lose. Questions? I realized that was a whirlwind.
I love this. Oh, sorry, I got excited. Does anyone have a raised hand that I'm talking over? Okay, great. In that case, David, I love that we have this, and I think it can be very inspiring. I'm wondering your thoughts and the group's thoughts as to, would we be interested in writing some of this up as a blog post to distribute, to perhaps entice people to make contributions in this direction?
It depends on what you mean by this direction. How's this? I think first of all, I think that the coming up with the list of ideas was the right first step, but there's no way we could possibly do them all. And so I think that instead of a post on here's an endless number of things that could be done, I think it would be better for some group, maybe a subset of the TAC, maybe the TAC itself, maybe looking through this, picking out what the OpenSSF wants to do, and then write a blog post about, we have decided that we are going to add to our list of things X, Y, and Z, explain why, explain what we intend to do, and that sort of thing. So I would say a blog post or something else would be great, but I think there's a missing step between, which is pick first.
Filtering, yeah.
Right, exactly. Because otherwise you've got over 20 pages of, and I don't, I think this was useful. Of course, I wrote it, so I guess I would think that, but I think it's helpful to not lose the ideas so that we can pick from the best. But it's only useful to have the long list if we're going to pick the short list.
Yeah, fair. In that case, like you had proposed that we decide and say we're going to be doing these. So what I'm thinking falls a little bit short of that, because I'm kind of interested in putting something out to the world, to your point, that is much more concise, that maybe we've narrowed it down to a top 5 or a top 10, but putting something out into the world so that if there's people that are attending our town halls and on our mailing lists and stuff and haven't quite found their place, they might see a project where they go, oh, that is the one I want to take on. And perhaps we provide a really clear way of bringing each idea forward, like whether it fits an existing working group or if it would require a new working group or whatever, if we can be really specific about what is the next concrete step to do the thing. So what I was thinking then, to take your feedback, might be, what if we pared down the list to like, a top 5 or a top 10 or whatever of things we'd like to see, describe them in kind of approachable language, and made that something public facing with a well-defined step as to like, and if this interests you, here's how you can sign up to do the work and coordinate people who are interested.
Right. And although I had the notion of have a final list, maybe what would be sensible, which sounds more like what you were thinking, is, hey, we made this long list. Here's our early draft shorter list. If you're interested, or maybe you think that we should have a different shorter list, please come and get involved.
Yeah.
So basically encouraging people to be part of that process of selecting the next projects instead of just here's the done deal. I just think that a lot of people won't read a long list of here's endless ideas, because I think for some folks are going to eat that up, but I think a lot of folks it'll be overwhelming.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're onto something, and that's a really good point, because I tend to like the long list, and I recognize that that's probably not a good strategy in general. What I'm really thinking here is like inspiration. So for people that are maybe intimidated to get involved, but people that enjoy starting their own thing or kind of taking ownership of a thing, just showing them a way, like a kind of nicely paved path to doing that, I suppose.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with formally establishing like a subgroup under the TAC of, I don't know what you call it, OpenSSF's next steps. I'm making up a name. And it selects a candidate set and then presents that, say, at a town hall or something else, and say, hey, we have a candidate list of activities we'd like to add. Please come and get involved, or you know, something that helps them get involved in that process.
Yeah, I think what we're really kind of talking about is like a prioritized backlog, right? And so, you know, we defining what the roadmap is really just a subset of the most, the highest priority things in our backlog. And so I totally agree. I love all these ideas. I think if we could get this little subcommittee, wherever it is, maybe we could leverage the planning committee, or it's a subset of the TAC, whoever it is. But yeah, a smaller group kind of come together, help start prioritizing all this content that we have, and then put it into a format that is nicely digestible. You know, as Jennifer is mentioning, that, you know, we could put out somewhere, people could look at that and we could say, hey, there's this idea and we think this would go well with this working group, or there's this idea and we think that'd be a great new working group. And that way people could just jump in there and go, okay, I'd like to work on that. I'll approach this working group, or maybe get a couple of like-minded people together to start one. But at least we have it out there and people can use that as a starting point to help get involved. And then we can publish something that's the subset of that is, quote, the roadmap for the next year, 2 year, whatever it is. It's kind of the same exercise, just grabbing off different chunks for different viewpoints.
I love everything you just said, and I said a subset of the TAC, but there's nothing wrong with saying that's the job of the planning committee. I mean, that would be also perfectly reasonable. It's whatever this group decides. Sorry, Jennifer.
Like, correct me if you folks disagree, but it feels to me kind of like the core objective of the TAC. I mean, we come here from a technical perspective to advise. So, I mean, I feel like it's well under our umbrella to care about and think about these things. So maybe, like, if there is sufficient interest across this group, we could commit to having one of our future TAC meetings being like maybe we all pre-read the list and then we discuss things we're most interested in, or maybe we have an annotation or voting function where we have everyone mark up the doc and we see which items seem to be preferred across the TAC as like most interesting, or something like that, where we can get the TAC's feedback into what that prioritized backlog, and Ryan, I love that as a way of describing it, could look like. But that's one of many ways we could approach it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I agree with you as well. I think that this clearly falls within the scope of the TAC. My only suggestion around maybe having a subset is just for efficiency, but sometimes a smaller group can be a little bit more efficient, at least initially. But I'm more than happy. I think what you just said is great too. Like, we can start with set aside some time in a meeting where we all do a pre-read, and then we come through and identify those things. And then if we want to continue doing that in the TAC, we can, or if it then makes sense to have a subset of us go focus on that for a little bit and then bring it back, however it makes sense. But I think initially what you said is a great idea.
Yeah, I like how you
have
put it, Jennifer, that it does seem like a core mission of the TAC. And then I like to think about how to build sustained contribution, because I get worried about people getting excited to come in and kind of start something, and then we've got a graveyard of half-started projects. So one of the other potential advantages of having the TAC focus on it is that instead of trying to get some grassroots contribution started, that we could also have channels back to our companies to say, here's something that this open source community has defined as an important priority, and we can actually allocate headcounts that will be sustained so that we can get some complete deliverables out of having started a project.
That's great thinking. I love that.
I have a thought to add to the mix, which is, I think, just a slight variation of what we've been saying. I'm really excited for there to be a roadmap for, a technical roadmap for the OpenSSF. I think a lot of are, people who are looking at the OpenSSF or even contributing to it. Question that I hear a lot is, okay, what progress have we made? What are we planning for next? And having a roadmap says what we're planning for next. And I think also to Dan's point, we can, when we say once we're planning for next, we can, start to rally organizations around contributing to that. The slight concern I have is doing it in a sort of a bubble up manner from the wish list. I think what could be, and I think that we want to do that bubble up from the wish list, but I also think we want to we did spend the time to come up with a vision a few months back, and I think I would frame it more by, here's our vision, and here's of the things that are either on this wish list or activities that are happening in the current working groups. Here's what we're going to do specifically in the next, let's pick a time frame, next 12 months to move us toward our vision. So it gets a little more, it doesn't focus just on what we haven't done yet. It's what we haven't done yet and what we're working on and how all of these fit into our vision. But still allows us to have, so we can put some things on there that we don't have people subscribe to yet and say, here's some new things we'd love to get you involved, and here's how this fits into our long-term vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think when we talking about coming up with a sort of prioritized backlog, it's within the context of the vision, right? Like, so the vision is the guiding light, our guiding principles, and what we're overall, generically targeting, and then the roadmap is the specific concrete implementations, that get us to that vision. And so we should definitely prioritize with the vision in mind, and make sure that makes sense. So I agree that the roadmap will show what we're currently doing, but it's also the stuff that we do plan on doing. And then outside the roadmap is, and then the rest of the stuff is, here's this interesting prioritized backlog that, future, if you want to spin up, and, how it kind of all fits together.
That sounds good.
Cool. Any other questions, comments on that? David, sorry.
You have 4 minutes.
Yeah. Which is actually pretty good. I thought for sure we were just going to be jam-packed and having to push stuff again to the next meeting. So I also thought we were going to have more content to review in the slide deck for the town hall. So maybe that's that.
So what are the next steps? I don't think we came to concrete next steps on the roadmap and wish list.
Yeah, so I think what Jennifer said, I liked a lot. So we can schedule, so the next TAC meeting, we kind of have one big thing. I want Dan to be able to present his DCI information, and he said he needs about 30 minutes for that. So we could have the second half of that meeting go towards this if we'd like. We can start now by saying, let's do a pre-read of this. People make comments in the document, come up with ideas of how we might want to present it to the world as far as a roadmap and the prioritizations, and then we spend those next 30 minutes kind of discussing that, and then we can move on from there. But what do folks think about that?
Is that for next meeting or the meeting after that?
I was thinking for next meeting, so 2 weeks from today, we'd have half of the meeting for Dan and the DCI, and then the other half for this, unless we have other priorities that I'm forgetting.
Sounds good to me.
So I'm posting a link in the wish list, and so I would propose that the reading is right there in 2 weeks' time.
Perfect, thank you, David. Yes, I don't want to read this document in the meeting. Let's actually do a pre-reading. Cool. All right, any other things? We got 2 minutes.
Ryan, I will email to the TAC list that link because it'll go away as soon as Zoom goes away.
Yes, it's my biggest complaint about these meetings. Like so much content gets posted in chats and then it's just gone.
Yeah, I know it. So let me resolve that for you before we forget, because
Thank
that'll
you.
be an easy problem
Yes,
to
thank
have.
you very much. Cool. So with 2 minutes left, Dan, I don't know, do you want to give a quick intro about what you're planning to talk about next week, or do you just want to wait and jump in and give us all that great content?
No, I can give a teaser now. So what I'm planning on talking about is not presenting a solution for here's how to develop diversity, civility, and inclusion in OpenSSF, but give some background on what I see in other open source organizations. So another read ahead thing that you could do is if you have open source organizations that you think are influential to you or that are good good examples out there in the broader open source community, please bring those to the meeting, or feel free to email those to me ahead of time, and I can also read up on them and see what they're doing. And then we're going to talk about some of the structural ways that we can affect change within the OpenSSF, and then what sort of resources that we would want to be able to bring to it. So there's a second read ahead item for you if there's ideas about things that can improve diversity and inclusion in open source that you've seen in other places. If you want to bring those along too, and then we can have a little bit of a working session with some of that time. So that was if there's organizations that you think are good ones to take a look at. And then second is if there's specific activities like some of the outreach that Jennifer had mentioned for underrepresented minorities, for different outreach activities or universities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how those two kind of come together too, because it's something I'm equally passionate about. I love this. So thank you so much for doing all that, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're out of time. So thank you, everyone. We'll be in touch online when content comes in for the deck that needs to get reviewed. And after that, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.